It's time for the Rider Dynasty podcast. Let's go! Welcome to the Rider Dynasty podcast with Ryan Bickerstaff, JJ Wenner, and your host, Michael Kloss.
Welcome to the Rider Dynasty podcast once again. It's about halfway through your fantasy season as we approach week 7. Of course, you heard the motorcycles and the intro with our beautiful names, so you know I'm your host, Michael Kloss. Ryan, JJ, myself, all here and eager to get into the weeds. So what's going on, gentlemen?
I have absolutely no interest in getting into any weeds. It sounds dangerous. I could get a tick, and I also get poison ivy pretty easily. So have fun in the weeds, gentlemen.
I'm glad that you took that really literally.
I've never had poison ivy, but one thing I know for sure is I'm getting really freaking sick of the officiating this season. It is genuinely ruining football. But aside from that, I'm great, guys. Happy to kick off episode 31.
Woo. Says the probably bitter Lions fan in the group. But I think even Packers fans were kind of clenching their teeth, saying that they might have gotten away with a couple calls on Monday night, huh?
Oh no, they're gonna get theirs the next time they play.
They probably won't, but I like your optimism. Also, certified athletic trainer Nick Marabito not with us tonight, but he dropped us a couple of notes on the latest injuries. JJ, you're gonna do your best Nick impression tonight, right?
Absolutely. I am going to talk a lot about players from Pitt and the Eagles and how awesome they are.
That sounds exactly like Nick, so I think we're in good hands then. Before we get to that segment that we are still going to call Nicked Up, with or without Nick, again, if you like what you're hearing, remember, this is episode 31, as Ryan said, of the Rider Dynasty podcast. Please like and subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts, and you'll never miss an episode. And, of course, be sure to tell your friends about us. We also provide this pretty cool service, I'd say, where if you give us a 5-star review, we will read it here on the podcast. And we want to do that. It's really a win-win for everyone. Right, guys?
Absolutely.
Right on.
Well, let's get to the best injury analysis here from our buddy JJ and our notes from Nick. In the entire world, should I even say? The best in the entire world. It is time for
Nicked Up with athletic trainer Nick Marabito.
Okay, so let's run down some injuries. I think that we're going to start with Amari Cooper. JJ, let's see what you got, man.
All right. Thanks, Michael, for kicking over to me. My name is Nick Marabito, and I owe everything to my wonderful basketball coach and mentor, JJ Wenner.
I love that JJ Wenner. He's awesome.
Yeah, he's my hero.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Cooper is dealing with a quad contusion, so Cooper is someone we need to see if his workload increases as the week progresses. Based on the reporting I've seen so far, it's a toss-up if he'll play this week or not.
That's a scary one for me as a new Cooper owner.
Yeah, definitely scary. I didn't mind seeing him out against JJ's Jets this past week. Now, Todd Gurley is suffering from a quadriceps injury. It's unclear if it is a sprain he suffered in practice or a contusion. There's that word again. Good news, it doesn't appear to have anything to do with his knee. Bad news, it was serious enough for him to miss a game. So we'll have to see how he's trending throughout the week. Now, Sammy Watkins. You know how I feel about Sammy, guys.
Yeah, Ryan,
speaking.
you know, JJ loves Sammy Watkins, doesn't he?
Yeah, a little bit. I think he's mentioned that a few times on here.
It's too bad he's not here.
Yeah.
Or is he here? Are you doing
I'm
multiple
breaking the
personalities
fourth wall.
right now?
I'm breaking character. I love Sammy. Sammy, you let me down every year, but I'll never trade you again. Hamstring strain for Sammy during practice last week. Ian Rappaport says that he has a good shot to play Thursday night, which is a little surprising because of the short turnaround. But we'll have to see what his activity level is like on Wednesday. If he's not practicing Wednesday, he won't play on Thursday. If he does, then he should. But we'll see. He just has constant, repeated soft tissue injuries. So I'm not a big fan.
How are you feeling about this, Nick/JJ? You feeling good about this segment so far?
I'm feeling pretty horrible. All he does is say how players are hurt. It's my second least favorite thing to hear.
What a
after
depressing
your guys
lifestyle.
Start-sit calls.
Ooh,
Those are generally the most depressing thing on
that
here.
hits me deep
But
down.
at the core. So James Conner, hail to Pitt, baby.
Oh, you actually.
That's what he wrote.
You actually read it.
No,
You're
I
like
read it.
Ron Burgundy. You read whatever you put on the teleprompter.
Yeah, I'm not going there. Left Sunday's game with a quad injury, but from the Twitters, James Conner said, I'll be good after the bye week. I couldn't accelerate after getting hit there. Benny was playing well, so it made sense to stay with the hot hand. He'll rest. He'll be back. Speaking of being back, Saquon, very good chance that he's going to play this week. He didn't play last Thursday, which, thank goodness. Golden Tate came back, looked really good. Sprinkle in some Saquon this week, and I think we'll see what the Giants have a chance to become.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, Sterling Shepard is still in concussion
There you
protocol.
go. Okay.
So we're going to have to monitor, but I would see him being out for a couple weeks at least, especially with how close those concussions were together.
Yeah, you're just rattling them off right now. Let me jump in. I've been really concerned about Devontae Adams. What does Nick have to say about Devontae?
Devontae is still dealing with his turf toe. It's a toss-up whether or not he plays this week. This is more of a pain issue. He's not going to risk further damage if he's not feeling okay. So we have to really see how he feels. If we see him practicing in consecutive days, then that should give you a hint that he's going to play later in the week. But, if the refs still keep helping out the Green Bay Packers, then maybe he can sit a few weeks.
Did Nick?
They'll deliver the wins.
Did Nick write in that little jab at the refs right there?
No, I did.
Yes!
I ad-libbed.
Good man. And then Deshaun Jackson, what's going on with him?
Deshaun Jackson is dealing with a core muscle injury, also known as a sports hernia.
No, don't you dare.
It is. It is a sports hernia. It was reported as a groin strain, now an abdominal strain. Basically, everything around his crotch is strained.
I know the feeling. When you strain your crotch.
Absolutely. I understood what you were putting down. I just wasn't picking it up. But he decided just to wait it out instead of going for surgery. I mean, we'll see. He's a sprinter, but that's where you get your explosiveness from. So, I don't know. I should have traded him after week 1 and tried to get what I can from him. I don't see him making too big of an impact this season.
I'm right there with you, I think. I got too enamored. I even sent a couple trades in a couple leagues for him, and the owner did the exact same thing. They're like, no way. He's going to be on my team. I'm going to ride him all year.
I think this happens every year. Like, Deshaun Jackson opens the year with a big game or two, and everyone goes, oh my God, he's back, and then he isn't.
That would be right. All right, so I think, JJ, fantastic impression. I got to give you just max props. And I think when Nick comes back, he's just going to shower you with pleasantries of your impressions and all that wonderful knowledge from you and Nick together.
Absolutely. And don't forget, it's Dallas week for the Birds, so they need this one. That's for you, Nick. And and your wonderful father Manny and your brother Tony and your mom Fee.
Getting all the family in there. That's right. Well, JJ, do you want to? We get another bump in here. I think that you should finish her off strong.
Man, let's get over to our news desk.
All right. So.
All right.
It was Will Dissly with another injury. They're reporting he has a torn Achilles. That's a tough one, Ryan.
Yeah, that's a really tough break for a talented player. He was really becoming a major part of that Seattle offense. And this is also the second season in a row cut short for Dissly because of an injury. So, yeah, I'll be very interested to see how he returns next year. As far as the fantasy impact of this, I don't see Luke Wilson or Jacob Hollister having much of any impact for the Hawks, and I anticipate more targets to go in DK Metcalf's direction, actually, because of this.
You with Ryan on that one, JJ?
Yeah, even though Luke Wilson is from Canada and has a second L in his name, I don't think he's going to really pick up much slack or be too big of a fantasy option. So I'm not looking to replace him with anybody on the Seahawks.
So then a big trade that went down today as of this recording. I don't want to date myself here, but this is Tuesday. The Rams traded Marcus Peters to the Baltimore Ravens. And then they trade a 2020 first and a 2021 first and fourth for Jalen Ramsey. JJ, can you break that down a little bit, how that impacts both teams?
Sure. I mean, I think it's a big signing by Baltimore, getting the corner from the Rams. They traded seldom used Kenny Young, their linebacker, who they had high hopes for, but he never really panned out. I mean, this should help their depleted secondary and hopefully prevent them from getting into shootouts like they seem to have been over the past few weeks. Looking at it from the other side, from the Rams, trading 2 firsts and a fourth for Jalen Ramsey, it seems a little desperate to me from a team who I thought was built for the long haul. I know I talked about this last week on my controversial opinions, but they're mortgaging 2 firsts for a cornerback, and they could have used those picks to solidify their line, bring in another running back to replace Gurley. They could have drafted a QB in case Goff doesn't get any better than he is. But it just shows a little desperation from that team, and they're really struggling. But they only put up 7 points against the 49ers. That's not a cornerback there, right? That's the offense not being able to put up points. So I'm not a big fan of this move for the Rams.
Ryan, what are you thinking?
I think this is a very strong point, actually. Like their offense is really slacking. The league figured them out, and they really need to make some changes in order to get back to that contender status. And a cornerback doesn't do that for them. But it's a fantastic move for the Jacksonville Jaguars, though. They part ways with a dissatisfied player, and they have 3 chances at drafting a future stud.
JJ, even in our last episode, was talking about how the Rams are predicted to be on a slide from his point of view, and that might look like it's coming to fruition. Moving on, tiny bit of news if you're interested in Jay Ajayi at all. He's rumored to start working out with teams this week. Are you holding on to him or trying to pick him up in anticipation of a contract? And if so, where would you say would be his best fit, Ryan?
I can't hold Ajayi because I don't have him on any of my teams, and I'm not looking to pick him up either. I have no expectations for him from a fantasy perspective, and I don't think his addition will suddenly help a team win. Said that, I guess a return to Miami could be interesting. Kenyon Drake could use a running mate because the Kalen Ballage experiment hasn't exactly worked out. And
a 1-yard touchdown.
All right. Yeah, I mean, so yeah, I don't know. Ajayi, if he comes back, good for him. He's worked hard to get back to this point after being injured so often in recent years, but I don't have any expectations for him.
Hey, Michael, recent news that just broke. So Tannehill is getting the start over Mariota this week.
I feel like I said it one point. I'm going to try to remember back here. I took him in one Dynasty League startup this year, and if I recall correctly, I predicted like a week 8 or week 9 Tannehill start or resurgence. So the Titans beat me a little bit to it. I don't know how much of an upgrade it is, but I think that the Titans offense with the apt to struggle. I know that they were in Denver. I like it. They need something new after not scoring any points in a game here.
All right, Ryan, any thoughts?
Like Michael said, he called around like the week 8 to week 9, and I think I said on a previous pod also that Mariota would play himself to the bench or get injured. I think I actually said that Ryan Tannehill would finish the season as a starter in Tennessee. So yeah, this is just kind of confirming what we had.
You with us, JJ? Or gonna go with the contrarian?
Yeah, I can't argue. In my projections, I think I had them each starting 8 games. I didn't see Mariota finishing the season. He's been too inconsistent. I don't think he's the running threat they thought he would be. I don't know. Just not what he was cracked up to be. That whole class is kind of...
All right, well, that's going to wrap it up for the news. For our third segment, which is usually our fun segment, it's the one that I always look forward to the most, and I hope you listeners do the same. Before starts and sits, we like to get into something fun. We spit a ton of advice on this podcast, and oftentimes we're right. And, of course, we're never wrong. But I obviously know we're not perfect, so we do feel like we need to celebrate our wins and then also own up to our losses. So we're going to call this segment, I Told You So. So as we get into this, we're each going to highlight 2 wins that we've had from up to this point in the season that we'd love to kind of get each person's thought on and what happened and what brought us there. And then we'll also highlight a major loss and see if that maybe we can make a prediction about that going forward, maybe to get a little bit of redemption. So, Ryan, why don't you start us off with a call that you made in the preseason that's come to fruition. What's your win number 1? Yeah, right.
It has to be Mark Andrews. He's the number 2 tight end in fantasy through 6 games. I said on a previous episode that he would flirt with a 1,000-yard season and finish near the top 5 at his position as the go-to target in Baltimore. Well, he is the go-to target for Lamar Jackson, and based on his current stat line, he's on track for 90 receptions, nearly 1,100 yards, and 8 touchdowns, which puts him right around 248 fantasy points. PPR. And starting in 2012, this figure would have been good for first place 3 times, second place 3 more, and fourth place once, which would have been 2018.
Not bad. That was a good call. I know that there were a lot of people that I don't know if there were a ton that felt that way. It seemed like he was definitely a riser. I know you heard a lot about Dallas Goedert. Maybe about his rise. It felt like you were in kind of one of a couple camps, but that definitely was a great call. JJ, would love to hear your first win.
All right. I don't think I had too many, but Dalvin Cook. I projected Dalvin Cook to be a top 15 back as long as he was healthy when we were doing our NFC North previews. Well, he's been healthy, and he is currently the number 2 back in PPR. The talent was always there, but the injuries were holding him back. Hopefully he can stay healthy for the rest of the year and finish in that top 15.
And then I'll jump in with my first win before we get back to you, Ryan. On episode 2, we talked about, again, players to watch for. And I'd love to go back and hear that awful mic quality as we were just kind of getting started here. But I told you to watch for Terry McLaurin from Ohio State. And boy, has he jumped on the scene. This last game, going over 100 yards, he's done it twice. He's scoring in every game that he plays. It doesn't matter if it's Case Keenum or Dwayne Haskins. He is the go-to target in Washington. And again, he's got a ton of speed, but he's also just been a presence. And I mean, again, he's getting several receptions per game. He's seeing, in the last 2 games, 7 targets apiece. He is their offense. Even though it's a bad offense, it can support a wide receiver 1 in Terry McLaurin.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Ohio State is wide receiver U right now. We all thought Paris Campbell would be the guy, but Terry McLaurin is stepping into that role following
The opportunity's
a
there.
lot of other great receivers from Ohio State. Absolutely. So my second win that I was happy about. I'm happy about this one. Lamar Jackson was my rising star in Baltimore during our AFC North preview. I liked his game. I liked how he played, and I thought that with an offseason to prepare as the starter, he would exceed expectations. At that time, his ADP was QB 16. He is currently the top scoring QB in fantasy. So I don't know if he's going to hold on to that. But, this past weekend, his passing numbers weren't quite there, but he bolstered it with his run game. So I'm very happy to see Lamar Jackson come through and, be at the top of the fantasy rankings.
Yeah, both of those were really good calls. I know I was a little skeptical on Lamar Jackson in the offseason, and that's something I was clearly wrong about. I'm going to go with DJ Moore for my second win here. And I probably beat the Moore drum more than anybody else this offseason. I had him ranked in the top 10 in my Dynasty rankings, and I had him at number 14 in my redraft rankings. And he's been steadily climbing the PPR ladder in recent weeks. Right now, he's at number 21. And now that he's on the same page as backup quarterback Kyle Allen, I think that upward trajectory is going to continue. And obviously, when Cam Newton returns to action, he'll remain the number 1 receiver in Carolina. And without projecting any improvement whatsoever, no outlier breakout performances over the course of the next 10 games, or an increase in touchdown receptions, he's on pace right now for 1,200 yards from scrimmage on 88 receptions and only 3 touchdowns. But that would still put him at 226 PPR fantasy points, which would have been good for a wide receiver 16 finished last year and a wide receiver 11 finished in 2017. So I'll take that out of a second-year receiver.
Yeah, all day. All day. Can I throw in a third? I love John Brown.
Go for it.
And he is performing for Buffalo. So that one actually is my favorite pick, because you know how I talked about him on our first pod, and that all Josh Allen would do was throw deep to Smokey Brown. So I am so happy that he's getting a chance after his time in Baltimore and Arizona.
I'm glad that you brought that up, because that was our first pod together. Of course, we've had conversations, we've had dozens of Slack and internet debates, but that was the first time, and you just went all in on John Brown, so that's good to hear too. My second win is I will go with Darren Waller. I was happy to say that this was right around the time that, right before the Darren Waller Hard Knocks episode peaked, because he was going around 250 ADP or something crazy in our Deep Sleepers episode. And I liked him then. Of course, the Antonio Brown exit definitely helped him. But number 7 tight end in PPR. I know you guys love your PPR, so I'm catering to you and the listeners here. But I mean, I know that he has over the last couple of games, his yards have not been there, but one of those games was against Chicago, so I'm not too surprised. And his big blow-up game was against Minnesota, which was interesting to see. Again, he's getting the targets. Again, that Tyrell Williams not being there did help, and you can kind of go through, but he is a solid option. He's I would have thought that he'd not have any really big games, but Derek Carr likes him, and they're content to nickel and dime and control the offense. John Gruden loves to do that. So Darren Waller coming out of, I guess you could say, nowhere, or at least the depths and buried in ADP, to come out and be a top 7 tight end. So I'm going to take a little victory lap there.
Hey, and before he had a bye week in there.
Right.
So he's only top 7 because he had a bye. On points per game, he is number 5 right now.
Even better.
So even sweeter.
So, of course, we're not infallible, and we have to own up to things and own up to our mistakes. So what we're going to do is we're each going to tell you a loss that we had, why we made the call at that time, and then what we see going forward on this particular case, and maybe if we can look at it from a different angle, or if we think it's going to go the same direction, maybe a chance to redeem ourselves. So who would like to start? Brian, I'm looking at you.
Oh, I will.
JJ, go for it.
I will. I made let me just say there were quite a few poor takes, such as Andy Dalton being a sleeper. But my biggest mistake, and somebody who I bought a lot of, and I don't think I'm alone, is Robert Foster as the rising star on the Bills. Yeah. The reason I made that call is he had finished last season very strong with a bunch of good performances in a row, and I thought for sure that he would continue to receive targets as an outside receiver on the Bills. But up until now, there is zero chance at any of my thoughts and hopes coming true here, outside of an injury. He hasn't even been on the active roster all season. And Duke Williams walked in and got playing time over him. Now, they did trade Zay Jones. So is there a chance of him making an impact? Yes. Hopefully he'll start being on an active roster, but man, I wasted a lot of capital trying to pick up Foster cheap. Even though they were like 4th and 5th round picks. Poorly spent.
Yeah.
Anyone else want to jump in?
I'm kind of with you there.
No,
JJ.
not really.
I added Foster to several of my rosters this offseason, and I also liked him as a potential rising star after his strong second half last year. My biggest loss was it's a doozy. It hurts me to say this, but Baker Mayfield. I had him as my QB3 in redraft, QB2 in Dynasty, and I even picked him as the league's MVP before the season began. Wow.
Are you saying that's not going to happen?
It's not looking good. You know what? All my other picks are still possible for defensive player, offensive, defensive rookie. But anyway, getting back on topic here, I made the call at the time because I looked at Mayfield's unprecedented rookie season, and then the Browns go out and add Odell Beckham Jr. and Kareem Hunt to that already stacked stable of weapons. And that was also while accounting for natural progression by the young QB. And as far as a chance at redemption, I don't know. The offensive line is horrible in Cleveland. They are not giving him enough time to throw. And some of Mayfield's interception woes are just plain bad luck. But Baker is the biggest cause of his own problems. In short, it seems like he's either too confident in his own ability to make every throw, no matter how risky, or he can't handle not being the underdog, overcoming all odds and proving the haters wrong. Like, everybody believes in Baker Mayfield to some extent now. And these are mental things that only he can get over himself. Nobody's going to do it for him. So going into the bye, this week off is going to be good for Baker. He, take some time to get his head right. And during this time, too, the Browns need to regroup as an offense especially, as well as scheme up some better pass blocking. And, if they can get it together more down the stretch in the second half of the season, he can salvage his sophomore campaign, but there's no chance he, redeems to the extent that he reaches those lofty expectations.
I don't blame you, though, is because, always the comparison is to Brett Favre, right? And we know Brett made 5 Pro Bowls in his first 7 years. And I don't know if it's just the draft day picture, if you've seen that before, of him trying to be like Favre, or just the amount of confidence he has in his own throws. But I saw it too. I got excited about Baker and all the weapons, and that has not turned out the way we thought. And I think, again, you were with many people who felt the same way. I'm gonna jump in on my loss here, and it's the biggest one to my heart, is because I'm gonna say my mistake was Derrick Henry. He obviously, we know he had a great end of the season and he accumulated over 1,000 yards last year, but I was stuck on the 55%, which was 585 yards out of 1,059, came in his last 4 games, right? So we saw the actual talent, but I really just didn't trust the coaching or the game script. We just talked about how the Titans, they struggle. And of course, Henry didn't have the greatest game against the Denver defense. And I don't hold him in a high regard, but, he is still 15th overall as a running back in PPR. He's above players like Josh Jacobs, Todd Gurley, Marlon Mack, and Lev Bell, all players that I thought would be light years ahead of Derrick Henry here. And somehow, in some way, I feel like that coaching staff at least grasps, and I just didn't give enough credit, I guess, that just any chance I got, and you can listen to all the past pods, there was one pod where Nick and I just absolutely went in on, I think it was our Ride or Die podcast, where we just said how much we actually hate Derrick Henry, and he's turned into, again, a serviceable RB2, and I kind of thought that it would be what he was going to do last year. It maybe turn it on at one point, but I was going to say he was a risky flex always. As my shot at redemption, I think that he's definitely, you keep playing him in great matchups, and if the Titans, if Tannehill can get them to a lead, that is a player that you want on your team. So I'm going to walk it back a little bit on Derrick Henry here.
Yeah, I'm holding firm. I don't think he's going to end up a top 12. He might end up a low-end running back too. So I don't think that's where he was being drafted, so I'm happy with not liking him.
For the record, I was the one of us that actually liked Derrick Henry.
Yeah, you did, and I think I might have called you some pretty bad names for that. So I'm sorry, Ryan. I apologize.
All right, gentlemen. Well, enough of this nonsense, because we could probably go off on our misses for quite a while. But let's get to the part of the show where Ryan and Michael compete for the crown as the predictors of Poppycock.
Ooh, I like that one.
Thank you. And as they are doing the hard work, once again, I'm going to sit back and make fun of them. The buys this week are the Panthers, Browns, Steelers, and Buccaneers. I think the Browns are shining up their championship trophy for Ryan and trying on their yellow jacket for the Hall of Fame for Baker. QB starts. Michael.
I will go with someone that I feel like we really have not talked about a ton. I'm going to start Matt Ryan. Despite the Falcons' struggles, Ryan has posted 6 straight weeks of 300 yards. He's passed for at least 2 touchdowns in every game but one. That's 10 TDs to 2 INTs in his last 4 games, and the Rams, as JJ continues to mention, or at least as I continue to bring up, they're not looking amazing. So we're going to start Matt Ryan.
I love me some Matt Ryan. Ryan, who do you have starting?
Oh, this is actually tough this week because there are some really good matchups for quarterbacks like Josh Allen versus Miami and Jared Goff versus Atlanta. But I'm going to roll with Kyler Murray versus the New York Giants here. Murray is slinging the rock with the best of them right now. He's the number 7 quarterback in fantasy, and he's coming off a huge performance against the Atlanta Falcons. And the Giants are the optimal matchup to keep this trend going.
Isn't slinging the rock slang for dealing crack?
Kyler Murray is not doing that.
No, he's playing football, Ryan. So double check. He's no Pookie. Michael, who are you sitting at QB?
Okay, I hope this makes you happy, JJ. Because
Yes.
I tailored all of my start and sits just to make you happy because the last couple weeks after we got done recording, I cried a little bit.
Okay.
You know, it was snarky enough, but it hurt a little bit too. So
I'll tone it back.
No, it's okay. I need to be smarter. So
That's true.
I'm gonna sit Tom Brady. It's tough to sit him, right? But I was pretty impressed with what the Jets did against the Cowboys. Now, again, if they have a healthy linebacker core, I would definitely say to watch out for the Jets coming. They are on a Monday night. I think the Jets have a pretty good chance to make some type of statement at home. I think that there are just better starts than Brady from a fantasy perspective, and who knows really what can happen on Monday night.
Man, that was a solid attempt at getting in my favor, and you are wrong. The Jets secondary is horrendous. I don't know if C.J. Mosley is back this week, but Brady is going to eat them up.
We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. Hopefully you're right. Ryan, who are you sitting?
Well, Michael said that he tailored his start sits to get on your good side. I took an opposite approach.
He said, "Screw you, JJ."
I'm sitting Sam Darnold against the New England Patriots. And to be fair, Darnold is the best quarterback the New England Patriots have seen all season. And he did just shred the Dallas Cowboys in his first game back after being sidelined with mono. But with the way the Pats' defense is playing, I don't know how much I'm willing to tempt fate here.
Tempt it. Robbie Anderson is going to have 2 touchdowns in this game. Michael, who should the Riders start in the backfield this week?
Well, you were definitely starting him, but if you need a little extra push, Leonard Fournette against the horrible Bengals front. Lenny's rushed for 405 yards in the last 3 games, and the Bengals are giving up 184 yards per game on average to RBs this year. He's in it to win it for you.
Awesome. Ryan.
Josh Jacobs versus the Green Bay Packers. Yeah,
that's easy for you to say.
He's just mad because of the Lions. He doesn't even want to say it.
Yeah.
Speak it into existence.
That's why I butchered saying their name. I just want to disrespect them.
Take that, Packers.
Coming off a bye after running all over the Chicago Bears in Week 5, I'm looking for Arrested Jacobs to come out hot against the Packers with a 20-plus point performance en route to a Raiders upset over their fraudulently 5-1 opponent.
Oh, yeah, he's bitter. Michael, who are you sitting this week?
Do you remember what I was saying earlier about my sits and starts for you?
Yeah, you wanted to make me happy. That made me very happy.
Yeah, so I'm going to sit Le'Veon Bell because I love to swing big on these. And I've had some decent luck with it. The Patriots defense, again, putting up more fantasy points than all of your favorite players on your team. And I do think that they will force Sam to sling the ball. Not the rock, the ball.
Thank goodness. With his size of a head, he'll stand out in any crowd. He'd be easy to pick out. Ryan, who are you sitting?
I'm sitting David Montgomery against the New Orleans Saints. The Saints are really tough against the run. I think they held Ezekiel Elliott to 1.5 yards per carry. They're the number 6 team against running backs, and through 5 games, Montgomery hasn't exactly been what many of us in the fantasy community were hoping for. And if you have other options, this is a definite matchup to avoid this week.
Can't argue with you there. Wide receiver starts. Michael, who should I start?
I'm thinking that this is the week to start Larry Fitzgerald.
Larry Fitzgerald.
Yeah, I think he gets. I kind of think he gets, back on top of the fantasy world. He's seen 16 targets in the last 2 games, and the Giants do struggle to stop opposing wide receivers. They're actually allowing the 3rd most passing yards to wideouts this year. So Kirk, and I'm definitely saying if you're having a lineup decision where it's someone or Larry, put Larry in.
Nice. Ryan.
Cortland Sutton versus the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't believe we've featured Sutton here yet in the segment, but he's the number 12 receiver in PPR, and he's been consistent all season. He's seen at least 7 targets in each game and is averaging 16 fantasy points per contest. The Chiefs might be the 11th ranked team against receivers, but Denver will lean on Sutton against their divisional foe in a game that ends up being quite pass heavy.
That's solid. I like Sutton. It's funny. I think Ridley got a lot of the offseason buzz after their rookie years, but Sutton's performing much better than him. Am I right?
Yeah, you're right.
Yes.
Okay. Wide receiver sits. Who are we sitting, Michael?
Well,
and
if
you upset me again, it's not going to be pretty. I'm just saying. So think about your words. Choose them wisely. Who are you sitting, Michael?
Well, about that, I am going to sit all of your Chiefs wide receivers not named Tyreek Hill. I'm thinking, again, Mahomes is a little bit hobbled, but of course they're going to pass the ball still a ton. But Hardman and Robinson, while they did see 8 combined targets against Houston, I think now that Hill is back and up against a Denver defense that could possibly bend and not break, I'm sitting those 2. Sammy Watkins is a bit of an enigma here, but I don't think that he's someone I can really depend on going forward.
If he's an enigma, call me Turing, because I'll figure him out.
Okay, I like it, Alan.
That's like a deep cut for history buffs.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see who knows that one. Ryan, who are you sitting?
I'm sitting Terry McLaurin versus the San Francisco 49ers, and this hurts.
Shut your mouth.
Wow.
It hurts.
Shut your mouth.
It hurts to write because I like Scary Terry, and also because I'm being forced to start him in one of my redraft leagues due to bye week conflicts. But the 49ers show they're for real after their drubbing of the LA Rams last weekend, and that defense is something to be avoided if possible. They're the number 5 defense against receivers, and stay away from McLaurin this week if possible.
All right, let's go through the tight ends because there's 2 good ones. Michael,
I think it's time to start. I think it's time to get Hunter Henry back in your lineups. He was kind of looked as a little bit of a shaky play last week just kind of because of injuries, but if you decided to roll him out against Pittsburgh, you were rewarded. Well, I wish you would have told me to do that over Will Dissly because I made a
Oh, man, we can't look. Injuries happen.
Yeah, very true.
Injuries happen.
Tennessee is a much better matchup for Henry too. So I'm confident that he's a top 10 play and rounds out that Chargers offense fairly well.
All right, Ryan.
Is it too obvious for me to suggest Evan Ingram versus the Arizona Cardinals here?
Yes.
All right,
yes.
As if the listeners aren't starting Ingram if they have him already. All right, how about a flyer on Darren Fells versus the Indianapolis Colts then? The Colts are the 30th ranked team against tight ends, and Fells is coming off a 6 reception, 69-yard game against the Kansas City Chiefs. Deshaun Watson targeted Fells 7 times in that game. So I'm looking for another similar performance this week.
All right. I love Fells. He was like a sneaky pickup last week and paid off for me in a couple of weeks. Tight end sits. Let's finish this. Finish strong.
Okay, I am going to try. Trey Burton isn't seeing much volume, so I'm going to sit him. I don't think that he's really doing anything with the targets that he actually does see. He's definitely a touchdown-dependent tight end 2 or 3. And again, as Ryan said, you're better off taking a flyer on a Texans tight end or maybe even a Rams tight end, which is just gross for me to say. That is not the epitome of finishing strong. I'm not a Trey Burton fan. I was last year, but you're sitting him this week.
Wow. Thanks for not taking the obvious choice there. The only thing more obvious would be saying Will Dissly. You're
that's
courageous.
a good idea.
You really
Will
are.
Dissly
You're like a first responder of our start sits. Like, thank you for your service. Ryan, why don't you finish off our start sits with something strong, like bull,
like Greg Olsen.
Yeah, I don't know how strong this is, JJ. I'm sitting Colts tight ends versus the Houston Texans. On the flip side of the Texans-Colts matchup, the Texans are the 4th best team against tight ends. And between Eric Ebron and Jack Doyle, they have 67.4 fantasy points, so combined, they're a top 10 tight end. Unfortunately, their mutual presence is hurting each other's individual fantasy value, and the matchup's bad, and choosing one or the other is too much of a risk, so look elsewhere for tight end help in Week 7.
Hey, it could be worse. You could say to start Jack Doyle, which I did in my one and only start sit appearance, but still, that was pretty weak by you too.
Yeah,
I think we should do tight ends first because it always fizzles at the end.
Yeah, it really
because
does.
Because both of you always because every tight end you sit, right? There's 4 good ones, and everybody else you sit.
Yeah, you just throw darts after that. It's pointless.
Exactly. So maybe we're going to change up the order next week. But hey, guys, great work. Once again, listeners, riders, do not listen to any of Ryan's sits. I believe
They worked out this week, though. They worked out this past week.
His record is pretty much like the Dolphins when it comes to sits. So
my starts are on point, though.
His starts are good. His starts are good.
I looked at it last week, and we're hitting at about like a 65-70% clip. I need to go back and check the numbers. But yeah, we're not doing bad. We're not doing bad.
So, what do you think our performance is compared to like a monkey throwing poop at a list? Right? Because don't they always find that like the chicken who can pick the NCAA bracket better than a human?
Much better than the monkey, but not as good as the sorority girl picking by favorite mascot or team color.
I totally do that. I don't know any college basketball teams. You always have to go. And how did you do? With dogs.
How did you go? How did you do in this last March Madness?
Nobody wants to be in a bracket with me. I don't know why. I'm such a pleasant person to be around.
Did you win at some point and they just never asked you back?
I did. We had a family tournament and I won in back-to-back years. And I guess I talked too much about it, and they canceled the tournament.
Say, that was enough of that.
Sorry, guys.
All right. No, you don't have to apologize. And thank you so much for listening to us and dealing with us on a weekly basis here. Again, hit us up on Twitter at Rider Dynasty and riderdynasty.com. That's going to do it for us. We'll see you next week. Have a good night.
Catch you in the next one.
Boat drinks.
Thank you for listening to the Ride or Dynasty podcast. If you have enjoyed the pod, please subscribe and leave us a rating and review on iTunes. Follow the guys on Twitter at Ride or Dynasty. You can follow JJ at JJ Wenner. Ryan is at BixPixFFB. And Michael is at Michael S. Kloss. Check out our website, rideordynasty.com. And remember, we have your back.
Your reputation far exceeds your skills, Mammy